Welcome, John Reid, to the Kids Entertainer podcast. You made a statement. I don't want to make people better performers. I want to make performers better people. Where does this come from? And what was the trigger? What did you see again and again and again in performers that made you think that?
Going back years and years, I noticed other performers insulting people on stage, or with something as simple as "Give me the hand, no, the clean one." That old joke that so many of us use. It was done. I just noticed that it wasn't really very nice, and performers are always they seem to be very concerned about what what they get out of it as opposed to what the audience gets out of it. And for me, we're in an industry where we should be thinking more about what we give, not what we get. And a lot of it seems to be very ego driven. And as I was teaching the kids at Tannen's Magic Camp, I noticed a lot of them, I would ask them, why do you do magic? And it was because I want, I like, I need, I feel. And it was never, I want to give, I would like to give, I'd like to teach, I'd like to help. It was always what they would get out of it. It just sort of, it led me on this path to want to try and get people to realize that we have a gift and we should be sharing it in a much better way, more constructive way, maybe.
Yeah, that's really interesting to hear you say that, because that is in the fundamentals of when we're marketing ourselves as well, and with basic copywriting is taking the I out of it, and putting in the benefits to the customer and to the reader. So these are all really good fundamentals. So you're taking these fundamentals and you've packaged this up in a lecture that you take around the United States.
Yep. It's called Bits and Pieces. And it's not your typical magic lecture. There's no card tricks. There's no coin tricks. There's no expensive gimmicks to buy, and it's not really about me. It's a lot of, as I've sort of said, it's things that make my heart smile. They're fun little things that we can do that just bring people to smile. And some of it's a trick. Some of it's not necessarily a trick, but it is magical. And that's the one thing I like about it is I've presented this lecture at face painting conferences, balloon conferences, magic conventions, and all of it all applies across the board. It's more of for lack of a better term, it's more of a mindset as opposed to a series of formulas.
So there's a real commonality between all children's performers with those, because you mentioned face painters and balloon twisters and magic. So this lecture, anybody could get you to come and do this?
Yeah, absolutely. I've done it. Like I said, I've done it at all these other conventions, and I've taken it all over. I had somebody ask me to teach it at a school. High school, and I thought, well, that's an interesting concept. None of these kids are magicians, but they thought, oh, well, it's just like you said, it's fun stuff, and none of it's difficult. It's not about the level of difficulty; it's about the impact that the end result. It's the impact of what we're presenting, not the secret, as most magicians are very accustomed to focusing on is how is it done, how is it done, how is it done. They forget the why and for who.
How do you start your lectures, John? Do you prompt your audience to think about things?
I do. Well, I start off by talking about first impressions, because if I'm going to be making a first impression at the lecture, I talk about it. And a lot of things go into making that first impression, that connection in the beginning. And it's not really an impression, it's a connection. If we're going to be talking to or with somebody, as opposed to at them, you want to make a connection. And there's things that people think about. You have 7 seconds to make a first impression. People go through their mind, is this person friend or foe? Should they approach or avoid you? Are you likable? Are you confident? And you want to establish that first impression in the first 7 seconds. And what I do is I come out and I talk to them about what, I know the question they're asking is, who is this guy with the funny mustache and why should we listen to him? And that immediately puts in their mind, it's like, okay, so he obviously kind of gets us. He's not just coming here to talk at us. And I talk to them, before I talk to them about what I am going to show them, I talk to them about what I'm not going to show them, just to set their mind at ease. I'm not going to try and sell you a bag of goods. I'm not going to try and pull one over on you. I'm here for you. And then I teach them all the things. I talked about all the things that I am going to teach them. The coil that we're going to make, how to create moments with their spectators. And that's a term that I really dislike. I hate the term spectators. I prefer the term participants, because the people that are watching our magic are just as involved in the magic as we are, if not more. One of the I don't know if you've ever heard the saying. They say if a tree falls in the woods and no one's around to hear it, does it make a noise? And I asked the audience what they think of that. And some people say yes, some people say no. And a physics teacher back in high school, believe it or not, this is the only thing I took out of physics class, said that when a tree falls in the woods, it doesn't make a noise. It makes waves in the air, sound waves. The waves go through the air, they hit our ears, reverberates the eardrums, which sends electrical impulses into our brain, creating the sound. So the noise is created in our mind. Sound waves are created, but not the sound. And the same can be true of magic. If a magician is in the woods and he does a card trick and no one's around to watch him, does anybody experience astonishment? And the answer is no. If there's nobody there to watch the trick, it's juggling at best, because we know how it works. It's not magic to us. So if there's nobody to watch it, the magic doesn't take place in our hands in a deck of cards or in a funny box with Chinese characters on it. It takes place, between the spectator's ears. So I really don't like the term spectator. I prefer the term participant. But that's sort of how I open up, the lecture. I talk about, not just what we're doing, but why we're doing it and who we're doing it for, and making sure that they bring that other human element into the equation.
Do you actually, and when you come out, do you pay attention to your physical stance and posture in making your first impression?
I do try, yeah. I try to make sure I'm standing up straight. I take a couple of deep breaths beforehand, try to keep the shoulders back, head up high, smile, and I try to at least make eye contact for a minimum of 3 seconds with different people in the audience. Not just blanket over the audience and kind of scan them, but I try to pick one or two people in each section, and I spend 3 seconds just staring at them and talking to them and only them. And what ends up happening is the 3 or 4 people around them assume that I'm talking to them as well, and that connection is formed a little bit quicker, and it's a little bit more intense than if I was to just walk on stage and kind of stare blankly into the lights. Even if I can't see into the audience, I know an area that there's a person. I can see the reflection of somebody's glasses in the audience. So at least I can pick that as a focal point, and kind of, instead of just addressing the audience, I try to imagine that I'm talking to that one individual. Everybody else can hear me, and for all intents and purposes, I am talking to all of them. But for that moment, for that 3 to 5 seconds, I'm talking to that one person.
How do you go with, do you think about the importance of pausing and not rushing? Because certainly when I started being in front of people, I used to rush. I used to rush everything I said, because I used to think, oh, as long as I'm talking, then they won't get bored. But I've since learned, about showmanship, and just through doing thousands and thousands of times in front of people, you learn that importance of pausing. And I find actually going out right at the start and just stopping and pausing and smiling and letting people look at me, not so it gets uncomfortable, but do you talk about that at all?
No, and it's the one thing that I have to work on a lot myself. I have to be very conscious of it. I'm from New York. We all talk very fast, and we think faster than we talk. So I'm constantly at a battle in my own mind of trying to get the information from my brain out of my head as fast as possible before I forget. I have a little bit of ADD. So that's something that I constantly battle on a regular basis. I don't really talk about it much. I do understand the power of the pause. Stan Allen, who was actually at that same convention, he brought it up in his lecture, and he is the master of the pause. I mean, he can speak volumes saying nothing. And it's so impressive to me. I just have that's something I have been working on myself for years. So I'm not an authority to speak on that. I've been studying it.
Oh, it's good. It's good. It's good to know that we're all learning. I mean, this is all a journey. One of the things about making that first impression, I remember, and I've forgotten who it was. It was an old vaudeville act. And they were saying that when you were, if an MC introduced you from the stage and you were standing in the wings, that you never ever just walked directly out from the wings. What you needed to do was walk towards the back of the stage and quickly to the middle, and then walk directly to the audience. So so in a sense, your first introduction is fully front on and face on, because the side is that there's a vulnerability to you from the back and the side, and you want to capitalize on that first moment. So I guess here I'm just reinforcing that that this you don't get a second chance to make a first impression, as they say.
No. Another, I've heard it said by a number of people, and I don't know where it originated from, but was to point your heart at the audience.
Oh, that's good.
Your heart at the audience, because one, it makes you stand up straight, and two, it means you're facing the audience, as opposed to just, if your heart is facing the other wing as you walk out, well, you haven't addressed the audience until your heart that comes out of your chest hits the center of the audience. So, as you said, walking to the middle and then heading straight forward means that my heart is going to be pointing towards the audience.
That's such a nice little catchphrase. Point your heart at the audience. Oh, that's going in the show notes, John.
Okay. I have no idea where it originated from. I've heard it from a few different people, and none of them ever. I never thought to ask where it came from, and I've never found out who I can credit for it. So as soon as I know, I will let you know. But maybe somebody hearing this will know. Oh yeah, that's originally from so and so.
So continue on with some of the themes in your lecture.
For instance, one of the things I talk about is seizing the opportunities that come our way. We have an incredible gift that costs little or nothing for us to share with the rest of the world. We can do things that change people's day, week, month, year, their outlook on life. And it goes back to, I ask people to think to themselves, why do we do magic to begin with? And a lot of us were inspired by somebody we saw back then, way back when we first started. Don't throw those opportunities away. We should be sharing our gifts with other people, be it twisting a balloon animal, painting a face, or even just telling a joke. I have a lot of little things that I do that I like to leave things around that sort of create smiles after I'm gone. I put little googly eyes on the salt and pepper shakers at restaurants, so that when I leave, the next people that come, when they go to put salt on their eggs, they're going to get a little chuckle. I learned how to fold towels into funny shapes, so that when I use a restroom in somebody's house, when I leave, well, there's a little elephant towel that's left in their bathroom. I know that the next person that washes their hands is going to get a smile out of that. Something as simple as, there's a website called pegitforward.com, and they talk about putting these little clothes pegs with messages on it, and you just clip into people's clothes, and when they get home, they see this little clip, they pull it off, and there's a message that says something along the lines of, I'm grateful for smiles like yours. And it's just a way to get people to bring up their day without it being about you. I like doing things like that, where the smiles, or the magic, as it will, happens long after I'm gone, because then it's a little bit more selfless, and I feel like it's less ego-driven. Because, squandering these gifts, it's just kind of sad. We have the ability to make people smile, and anybody really has the ability to make someone else smile. But as entertainers, we've studied it. we've studied technique and skills, and we've written curriculums and jokes and volumes on how to make people smile. And when people go, well, I don't do a show for less than X number of dollars, it hurts me. Okay, fine, don't do a show, but there's nothing stopping you from pulling a quarter out of that kid's ear. Or, the 10 cents for a balloon to make a balloon for a kid who's upset. We have the opportunities all the time. And I think it's sad if you don't embrace that.
Yeah, smiling is infectious. You can catch it like the flu. Someone smiled at me today, and I started smiling too. Dr. Seuss. Yeah, and look, I just to go back about that towel elephant. That's one thing I learnt to do a number of years ago, and I used to travel a lot and spend a lot of time in hotel rooms. And I always think that you should leave a tip for the room staff, no matter how small. So I used to always do it with the towel elephant, and make the little towel elephant, and make a couple of, just tear off a little bit of a newspaper or magazine for the eyes and stick them on there, and just put a little thank you note with the tip. And I know it works because I've left things behind in the rooms and had to go back and get them, and I can hear the like the elevated, excited talk between the roommates. Come and have a look at this. Come and have a look at this. So it really does make a small difference.
Yeah. I mean, doing something as simple as I'm a firm believer that if you're going to leave a tip for somebody at a restaurant, you should not fold the tip into any kind of origami, because now they have to undo whatever you left for them in order to get the tip. So I will always leave the tip, and then I will take an extra single dollar, and then I will fold that. And I will leave a little origami dollar bill, an extra dollar above what a very acceptable tip would be. And I will leave, and then I'll look in the window and I'll watch when they get it. And it usually gets a smile. I mean, almost always. And it's not just the kind of like a half grin, but a, hey, look at what I got. Look at, like, they're almost proud to show the other people that are in the restaurant, and they get to share the smiles. And then other people smile. And again, it's those exponential smiles that I'm really going for. If I make one person smile, great. But if I can make 5 or 6 people smile and that'll carry over, that's a bonus.
So you've got a mission, you were telling me.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, my mission, like I said, my mission statement is I want to create 10 million smiles.
Yeah. And
which
so
I think it's not a bad mission.
yeah, it's a great mission. And you also call these little things that you do, you were calling them magic droppings, is that right?
Yeah, magic droppings is another thing I talk about in the lecture, which is when you do a magic trick, if you can, or anything for that matter, if you can leave the people, your audience, with something, an actual physical, tangible item. Because as I said, if we do a trick for somebody, the magic happens between their ears, in their brain. Once we're gone, the magic ceases to exist as soon as they forget about us. So if we can do anything that can trigger those memories again later, a bent quarter, a signed card, a piece of string, a balloon animal, a sticker, a piece of origami, anything that we can leave with them, that will trigger that magic again later, which means now the magic is recreated and we didn't even have to be present. If you go see a large stage illusion show, you watch it and you're amazed and it's incredible, and then you leave and you go out to dinner and you're thinking about the chicken parmesan that you're ordering, and the magic no longer exists. But you can do something as simple as a card trick where a person signs a card, they take that card home, they put it in their wallet later on when they're going to get their bus ticket out, they see the card, the magic happens again. They get home, they empty their wallet out, they see the card, the magic happens again. 2 weeks later, they're cleaning their nightstand, the magic happens again. So you can do a lot with very little by just leaving these little magic droppings, these anchors.
And I guess this is where balloon twisters and face painters have a bit of an edge in that sense, is because essentially what they are doing is leaving their legacy, their memory with the person.
Yes. And that's one of the things that drew me to balloons to begin with, because I left them with a tangible item. And I always felt that was something important. It was, like you said, it's like a legacy. I mean, a balloon is, of course, very ephemeral, and it's a short-lived legacy, but a legacy nonetheless.
Yeah. I used to, because I'm a magician, a children's magician, and when I started doing strolling gigs, and particularly ones outside, say at a festival or a school fair, that I found when I was booked and I was doing magic, even though the magic was good for the small group of people, the people booking me never saw it. Yet I would see there would be balloon twisters, and you would see that the work that the balloon twisters were doing, because people were walking in and out of the gates, holding, their balloon creations. And it got me thinking that was, on a marketing level, that was a problem with being a magician, was that there was no one, there was no real visible sign that when it was over that I was even there. So that's right. Actually when I started doing balloons, was to go, well, actually, on just purely from a marketing point of view, it makes more sense to do balloons.
Yeah, no, I mean, and from a marketing sense, but for me, like I said, just to be able to give them a tangible item and know that when they went home, they would be thinking about me for hours and hours and hours until this thing popped. And then potentially they'd be thinking about me the following week because I got to get a replacement. So, yes, marketing, but, brought people back. And again, it created a connection, because when you can give somebody something, tangible or intangible, it strengthens the connections. And to me, a tangible item is always going to be stronger than an intangible item.
So In the same vein, but a little bit different, I know that you're pretty big on throw streamers. Can you talk about that?
So I'm big on throw streamers, but I'm also big on the production coils, the ones that traditionally magicians either pull out of their mouth or out of their hand or a production item. All those paper products, the coils were something I would leave when I was doing close-up, believe it or not. I wouldn't pull them out of my mouth. I would pull them out of an invisible change purse frame, and I would get to leave them with people. And it was a way for, when I was working in restaurants, just like you said, you'd work at these festivals, and nobody had any idea you were working there. For me, it was a gateway. That first impression that I was always so nervous about making, I could produce the coil out of the purse, and everybody around me saw this bright visual paper just appearing out of nowhere, and now no one in the restaurant thought I was the waiter. So they would now ask their servers, can you send that guy over to us next? I didn't have to do this awkward approach where I would interrupt a meal that people were potentially enjoying. They were asking me to come over and inviting me into their space, which automatically made that first connection so much easier. And the other thing is it would leave the people with a tangible item that they could take home. So if the management poked his head out of the kitchen, he could count the tables and go, well, he's been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Well, he's been through about 12 tables because he could see the 12 pieces of paper at the various tables. So it started with coils, and then the throw streamers became something, as I got more into stage shows, it was this visual explosion that didn't involve fire. Jeff McBride likes to say confetti is the new fire. And it really is. It's a completely safe aerotechnics is what a lot of folks will call it. And it's a small explosion. It's surprising. It's exciting. It's synonymous with celebration.
Can you explain it for people? Just try to, even though we're just doing audio here, can you try to paint a picture of what it looks like?
It looks like New Year's Eve in Times Square. It's just an explosion of ribbons getting tossed out into the audience, and it gets big. It starts in your hand and it just gets bigger and bigger until you have a 20 to 30 foot wide, umbrella of streamers that is about to fall into the audience. And then I usually gather them up and produce, some sort of magic load out of it, either a silk fountain or a live dove or a bottle, but the impact is not the production of the magic item. The impact is this explosion of color and motion indoors. Which indoors you obviously cannot have fireworks indoors, but that's kind of what it's like. It's like totally safe fireworks. It's the same idea as, like I said, confetti and streamer cannons that they would have at, say, New Year's Eve in Times Square, just on a smaller scale.
And so this is all part of you branding yourself, creating a unique act, a unique image. Mm-hmm. Tell us about your act. What's unique about you and your performances?
Somebody, Leslie, actually, who you had mentioned earlier, that you had spoken to her, she's sort of my marketing director. She helps me with things. She said that the best thing about my performances is that my mission statement sort of carries through, and it's all about my philosophy that carries through in the performances that makes it more sincere and more genuine, which I think should be the case with anybody. Whatever you truly believe in, that's what should come out in your show. Whatever your mission statement might be, that should be what's conveyed throughout your show, almost as if it's a filter. If you can ask, I can ask when I do my show, I ask before I put something in, will this create a smile? If the answer is no, there has to be a really good reason why it goes in the show, because it doesn't fit my filter. So I guess the thing that makes my shows unique is it's sincerely and genuinely me. It's organic, I guess, is another way of putting it. I remember at one point somebody telling me when a show is organically that performer's, it's automatically better. There's no one that can just take a routine from somebody and make it their own, identical. It has to go through some evolution in order for you to take somebody else's routine and then, quote unquote, make it your own. So I like that term, organic. I guess, the things that I do are organically me. People taught me tricks, people taught me routines, but I've now, chopped them up and smashed them together to make them more my own.
I like what you were saying about you use this filter of, is it going to make people smile? Is it going to be tied into this mission statement that you have? Because I found it so much easier to construct a show when you put those, like a filter, or in my case, I put physical boundaries around it because I was traveling a lot. I actually had a small case that used to be my showcase that went around. And once I said, okay, if it can't fit in that box physically, it doesn't go in the show, all of a sudden it became so much easier to construct a good show that suited my needs of portability, of flexibility, of being able to be perform surrounded, all those things. But just the point that you made there of actually creating some sort of filter for yourself, rather than just looking at everything that's out there and going, well, what am I going to take?
Right. I mean, an interesting fact that somebody shared with me about 10 years ago was there are more books written on magic than any other subject in the world except for religion. So think about that. There are more books on magic than any other subject other than religion. That's a lot of information that's out in the universe on one single subject, and we have to filter through all of those old books, all of those old VHS tapes, all of those DVDs, and all the new magic that comes onto the market every single day and go, well, which one do we want to do? Well, where do you even begin? So, I mean, yeah, you can chop it. If you're a stage performer, you chop out all the close-up, and that kind of whittles it down. If you're working for children, well, any of the adult humor goes out the window. You don't have to worry about that. But that's still so much information that we have to now, for one, absorb, and then kind of to get it out of our head what we don't want. And it's hard to read stuff and then forget it, and then make space in your brain for the new information. So having a filter really does help me. I have a few filters. One of them, though, like I said, is, will it make people smile?
What are your other filters? What's one more?
No pyro. Nothing that involves any fire. And that's just a personal thing. I don't want to be. Fire is dangerous. It's scary, and putting pyro into a show to me just creates a whole new bag of problems that can go wrong. And since I do perform mostly for families, I don't need to introduce fire to children. One of my old mentors, he used to say, a burnt customer is not a return customer. And it's stuck. So that's another thing I don't do. I never do pyro. And I try to limit the props that I use. Similar to what you said, if it doesn't fit in the case, I don't bring it. I have a car that I drive to most of my shows in. If I can't fit it in the car, it doesn't go. So that eliminates my zigzag, my crystal casket, and right now my sub trunk, because they don't fit in the car that I currently own. And that's fine. I mean, I get enough shows for doing what I want to do, and eventually maybe one day I'll get a bigger car if I feel the need.
Now, we spent all this time talking about magic, which is applicable to so many areas of kids entertaining, what we've been talking about. But you also hold world records for balloon twisting. So let's just talk a little bit about that passion you've got for balloons. Where did that come from?
It was an accident. I was doing magic shows. I started out as a magician, and the woman who was hiring me for one of the first, couple dozen birthday parties that I had ever done said, well, the other guy said he'd make balloons. Can you make balloons? And I said, of course I make balloons, which I did not make balloons. So I ran to the local magic shop, and I got a book by George Schindler, and I learned how to make 130 animals that all look like a dog. And that got me by for a little while. And there was a gentleman by the name of Terry Perrette who came into the local magic shop, and he made a pretty elaborate sculpture. He made a Daffy Duck. It was the first time I had seen more than one balloon used in a sculpture. And I thought it was amazing. And I ran out to my car. I got my balloons. I came back in, and he was gone. And I had to figure out how to make this balloon at home. So I went home and I reverse engineered it. And I think I was just so excited by it. That's when the spark hit. I was so determined to figure out how he had made this sculpture. And since then, Terry and I have become very good friends. We used to trade ideas for balloon sculptures that we were doing. And then he actually moved out of the balloon sculpting industry, really, and he's become he was a magician, and then he was a hypnotist. Now he's a hypnotist. He does a very successful hypnosis show. And for me, the balloons it was a creative outlet other than magic. It was I've always liked art as a kid. I used to draw, used to sculpt. I was never good. or I could never accomplish what my brain saw. With balloons, it was a very different medium for me. I was able to visualize what I wanted in my head, and then I could translate it three-dimensional, and it would come out pretty close to what I was thinking. So it was a medium that I felt I understood very well. So it just excelled from there. Now it was something I was good at, and you know, do what you're good at. People wanted to hire me to do that, so it was sort of self-propelling. They would call me up and go, "We want you to do balloons," and I went, "Okay, well, I do the magic show," and they go, "Hey, yeah, that's nice, but we don't want the magic show. We just want the balloons." And I thought, I can make a living doing just that as well. So, I enjoy it. And like I said, everything just kind of came together.
So just explain to us how you got your world record.
So I got the world record. It was a 50-foot tall robot. His name was Poptimus Prime. It was 4,302 balloons. He had 8 points of articulation, so he bent at the elbows, the shoulders, the hips, and the knees. So he's also technically, I guess, the world's largest action figure. And I built him at the Salt Lake City Comic-Con, which is basically a science fiction convention where people come dressed up as their favorite superheroes, and they have, models of different science fiction characters and spaceships and such. And the reason I did it, believe it or not, was actually sort of to get some publicity for my Something project, the something bake form. I did that exactly 1 month before I launched my Kickstarter, and it got us a lot of momentum. A lot of people were just going to the balloon robot to find out, what if this isn't the big thing, what's the big thing? And as a result, I got publicity for doing a lot of publicity for doing the robot, for being a balloon artist, which wasn't my intention. That was just sort of a good perk for it. The intention was really to draw attention to the Something project.
Right. Okay, I'm going to put you in an unfair hypothetical here. In a world where you were given one choice right at this very moment, if you could continue doing magic or continue doing balloons, which would you do?
People ask me that all the time. Which one do you like better? And you say it's an unfair question. It's like asking a parent which child do they love more.
That's an unfair question, yeah.
And the reason is, and it's not that I don't love one more or less. I love them differently. They give me different types of joy. I don't know, and it's funny, if you ask my friends which one I would pick, they will all have a different answer. They go, well, clearly he would choose magic because it's what he started with. Clearly he would choose balloons because it's what he's more passionate about. But for me, it's really like they're apples and oranges. I can't choose one over the other for any one reason. That would be really tough. I wouldn't know.
But talking about passions, another passion that you have is teaching magic and performing to youngsters. Tell us about that.
I've been an instructor at Tannen's Magic Camp now for almost 20 years. I teach primarily beginner close-up. I've lectured there as well.
Can you explain what Tannen's is for those who don't know?
Sure. Tannen's Magic Camp is the oldest magic camp in the United States. It's 41 years, I believe, now. 100 to 120 youngsters, ages 12 to 21, 22, I think maybe, fly into Bryn Mawr, Pennsylvania, along with about 30 staff members. And the staff members include everything from professional magicians to former campers who have now gone on to do other things, such as marketing. We have I think now 2 ordained rabbis who come in to help with counseling. We have school teachers. We have computer programmers that are also magic enthusiasts and magic. They're part-time pros, if you will, and they come in to teach these kids everything from beginner close-up to beginner stage, advanced close-up, advanced stage. There's workshops. There's evening shows, and it's a 7-day intensive on magic. It's not the normal camp that most people are used to going to. There's no canoeing, there's no swimming classes, it's magic from morning till night. We get up, the kids are up, and usually before we go to breakfast, the kids are downstairs in the main lobby, sitting on the floor, showing each other their cups and balls, because, magic is you might be the only magician in your neighborhood. So when you get 120 youngsters who've never met another magician like themselves, it's very empowering. They all of a sudden they go, oh my gosh, there's more people like me, and it's more of a family than it really is a camp. Like I said, I've been going 20 years now, and I can't imagine not being able to go.
And you also do teach online. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I'm a presenter for Teach by Magic, which is an online forum and school, I guess you could call it, for teachers. And the teachers go on and they log into their account and they type in, oh, I'm teaching the kids fractions. And one or two different presenters will come up and go, well, here's a magic trick that you can use as a hook to teach an object lesson for the kids that incorporates fractions. Let's say you need to teach them about something in English like homophones or homonyms. Well, you would type that into the search field and a magic trick would come up that teaches about homophones or homonyms, and it incorporates a magic trick. The mentality behind that, the mission statement behind that, it's learning starts with wonder. If I just tell you something, you may not forget. You may remember it, may not remember it. But if I get you to want to learn about it, and then I give you the information, I'd be hard-pressed to force you to forget it. So when you get a kid who's really interested in whatever is presented to them and they want to learn more about it, that's an incredible tool. So I've done a few presentations for Teach by Magic. Teachbymagic.com is the website.
Yeah,
and that's the brainchild of Brian from Creative Magic.
Right, yeah. We're going to put a link to that on the show notes page. In fact,
Sure.
everything that you've talked about in this episode, all the listeners can go to the show notes page and it'll all be there, easily accessible for everyone to run with and get passionate about and go and find out about. Now, John, is there anything that I should have asked you and I haven't?
You didn't ask me about something.
Oh, okay, yeah, okay. Tell us about something.
So something is it's based on that old clown prop, that foam cutout word of something, where you would look in your case, your prop case, and you go, oh my goodness, do you guys want to see something? And of course the audience says yes, and you pull it out, and it's just a big sponge word that says, something.
Wah, 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 wah.
Wah, wah, wah. And I used to use this in my show all the time, and I was on my way to a housewarming party, and I didn't pick up a gift. And I went, oh my gosh, I have to bring them something. And I looked over, and I see my case open, and I see the word, and I thought, oh, this will be a riot. I grab the foam word, I take it to the house, and I go, oh, welcome to the new house. I got you something. And they had that wah, wah, wah. And then I did all the jokes that we all, that a lot of us will do. I would smell it and go, does anybody else smell something? I'd drop it on the floor and step in it. Oh, no, I think I stepped in something. And I left them with this foam word, thinking, well, I'll just get a couple more. It's not a big deal. I have a spare somewhere. And I got a phone call from them a couple days later, and they said, we can't tell you how much fun we've had with this word. They moved into the house. They had no cable, no furniture. Everything was in boxes. And, of course, in the first couple of days, everyone wants to come see the new house. So they had to find ways to entertain people. And putting this foam word on their mantle just created so much fun and humor and jokes and lightheartedness that it was really it was a blessing for them, they said. So I started giving them out to every housewarming. Every time somebody had a baby, I would give something for the baby. One year, everybody got a little something in their stockings. And I thought, I need to find a way, because these foam words were about 18 inches long. They don't really ship well. I wanted to make them smaller. And instead of going and finding a die, I figured, well, maybe I'll just get a cookie cutter and I'll stamp them out myself. And then I went, wait a minute, why do that? Why not just make a cookie cutter and give people the cookie cutter? And then they can make something, and they could bring something for dessert. They could bring something to school for the teacher. And it ended up sort of evolving into a silicone bake form that is bakeable up to 450 degrees. And so you can bake in it, you can freeze in it, and it's about 12 inches long, 10 inches long, and it's in the shape of the word something. So now you can bake a brownie and bring something for dessert. You can freeze some juice and put something in the punch. You can make a candle and have something to set the mood. You can make soap, leave something in the bathroom to freshen up with. Bake some bread, cut it in half, put on some lettuce and turkey. Now you have something for lunch, something for a midnight snack. And we started this Kickstarter. Brian, again from Creative Magic and Teach by Magic, he put together this book. He invited all the people that signed on to the Kickstarter to send in their ideas and their photos of what they made with their baking mold. and he compiled this book called I Got You Something that contains 365 ideas to use with something. So it's literally something for every day of the year. And we've had some initial success with it where lots of people have purchased them. We just got them into the Museum of Modern Art in New York. So they're now selling them at the Museum of Modern Art in New York, which is kind of a big deal for me because my grandmother always said I should do something with my life. And now I have something in the Museum of Modern Art.
Oh, it all ties in. So good.
Yeah. And it's again, it's those exponential smiles. I get to give somebody the book and I get the first smile. Then they show their friends and they get another smile. Then they take the mold out, they make something, bake something, they make something for breakfast, and whoever they share that with gets yet another smile. And I'm finding people taking pictures with their phones because now social media is all the rage. They'll take a picture with their phone and they'll share the picture, and now there's even more smiles. And like I said, you said, how do I keep track of those 10 million smiles I'm trying to create? I don't, because I never want to really stop. I don't want to know when I hit 10 million because then I might go, well, I hit the number. I guess I can stop now. But it's fun to know that those smiles just keep growing and growing.
Tell people some points of contact for you, like some websites where they can come and find out who you are and what you do and what you've got to offer.
Oh, sure. You can go to, if you want to see my product line, it's cressy.com, www.cresey.com. That's where we made all the mouth coils and the throw streamers and all my products, and that's also where you can pick up my lecture notes. You can go to somethingsoon.com, which has information on the Something project and a link to the Kickstarter page there, which is already done. We funded, actually. We were successful. But you can see all the process of what we went through to create the project. You can go to my personal portfolio, which is epicballoons.com, and that's where you can see pictures and video of the world record. I've made dresses for rock stars. I've performed on the White House lawn doing all balloons, and that's where you can see some of the crazier things I've made. Full-sized cars, motorcycles you can ride, and those are probably the best ways to catch me.
Well, John Reid, thank you very much for taking your time to enlighten us, and good luck with everything.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.